Some time ago, I was merely sharing my testimony with some fellow Christians who were simply calling out for Jesus to be known. Perfectly simple. When someone of foolish vindictiveness declared us to be delusional, and to prove it, laid down a list of Bible verses that he claimed showed how wrong we were to worship God. So this is the advantage of having a YouTube channel that not many people know about. At least I don't know. It means you can slip under the radar and people will challenge you. So I, or a Pilgrim, if I took up this challenge, took the gauntlet that he so foolishly threw down, and started my studies into the passages that he had presented. For professional reasons I will not name him, but since this video will be sent directly to him, he will know what happens when the warrior makes a stand. You know who you are, my good man. Here I am. Here's my blade. This is my answer. He starts up by quoting the first book of Samuel, chapter 6, verses 19. And he smote the men of Beth-shemesh, because they had looked upon the ark of the Lord. Even he smote the people, 50,070 men. This is being cited as gratuitous slaughter on the part of God. On the face of it, this is hauntingly reminiscent of the almost casual police brutality seen in America. However, on closer inspection, we can see there's something quite different about the story. The ark was being returned to its resting place in Israel, having been stolen by the Philistines. The local tribes, which include the Levites and Beth-shemesh, effectively waylaid the ark on its journey back to Israel, taking it down from its cart and placing it on a great stone, where they burned offerings and made sacrifices. They were claiming it as their own and giving it their own altars. You may be thinking, what's wrong with that? That's what the Israelites do. That is sort of the point. God didn't make the covenant with the Levites or the Beth-shemesh. He made the covenant with Israel. This was essentially looting, claiming something that's not meant for them. Remember, this isn't just any old crate. This is the Ark of the Covenant, the symbol of God's covenant with the house of Jacob. This isn't someone nicking a toy or nicking a chandelier. This is someone stealing the deeds to your house. This is someone stealing the American Declaration of Independence and passing it off as the Geneva Convention or something like that. For this, they were punished. Some versions say 50,070, some just say 70. But still, considering what us humans have done for lesser reasons, including looking at us in funny ways, and even being in the same country as people who so happen to have killed some of our friends, and this is mild in comparison. He goes on, citing Deuteronomy chapter 25, verses 11 to 12. If two men are fighting, and the wife of one comes to save her husband from the assailant, and in doing so she reaches out and seizes him by his genitals, you shall cut off her hand. Show her no mercy. According to him, you can kill a woman for grabbing a man's genitals without permission. Firstly, considering quite a few people are actually considering rape and molestation to be a hanging offence in this day and age, wanton and aggressive grabbing of a male genitalia isn't too far beyond the ban, particularly when it comes to corporal punishments. And that's the thing, this isn't a capital punishment. Cut off the hand isn't necessarily a death sentence. Even in Old Testament times, they knew how to cauterize a wound, and that's not making it easier. That's not making the mop easy, because they'll still be missing a hand. Anyone who's an amputee knows that missing a hand can still cause problems. So, is this an unreasonable punishment? Well, not really. Even in playground fights, crotch shots are considered a low blow and are banned in most civilized combative sports, since many more options are available to the person breaking up the fight than just going to the meat and to veg. And the separate implication in this action is understandable. And furthermore, it's linked to Christ saying that if your hand causes you to sin, cut it off. It's better to enter heaven crippled and lame than to not enter heaven at all. The next one is a bit confusing. He gives 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 18. Slaves must be subject to your masters with all reverence, not only those who are good and equitable, but those who are perverse. He claims this condones perversity and human trafficking. I guess so, is anyone's guess. Since the slaves in this instance are already enslaved, and if one reads on just a bit more in that same verse, reading just beyond that verse, it says that they encourage them to persevere, so they will be raised up in the eyes of God, accepting their lot and pushing through, which is something few of us do today, and hardly any of us are slaves. I know from experience that if you push through an extremely tough ordeal, no matter what it feels like, it can make you a better man, it can make you grow, make you stronger, makes you a better person than those you were working for, no matter how harsh they were. Furthermore, he cherry picks. I hate it when people are actually critical. He cherry picks one of only two translations to translate the Greek term into perversity. The others I've found translate it as harsh, cruel, unjust, unreasonable, forward, wicked, unfair, and fraudulent. Even when we take the English word perverse and look up its meaning, one sees it means unreasonable, unacceptable, or bent. There's nothing overtly sexual in there. This doesn't condone trafficking or perversion. It encourages the downtrodden to live and work towards God, despite the cruelty of others. Putting a modern interpretation of a word that he cherry-picked out of it, and he openly admitted he cherry-picked it, using the King James version if I remember. He goes on to say, sex slavery is condoned by Exodus, chapter 21, verse 7 to 8. When a man sells his daughter as a slave, she will not be freed at the end of 6 years, as the men are. If she does not please the man who bought her, he may allow her to be bought back. This isn't an unreasonable assumption to make on the face of it. There isn't a lot to say otherwise. We have many translations saying slave, some maidservant, and one concubine. And with the way maidservants are treated in some households, sexual attitude is not unreasonable either. So you can see where he's going. Again, however, not given the full verse, or even if taking the following one, leaves us with that impression. Let's take a look at the rest of it. Firstly, the remainder of verse 8 says that he is not allowed to sell her to foreigners, since he is the one who broke the contact with her. Verse 9 continues by saying that if the slave owner arranges for her to marry his son, he may no longer treat her as a slave, but as a daughter. Putting all that in context, there's a different spin on it. Buying a female servant for work and the comforts of a bed was quite possibly common in the lands of Egypt at the time. Egyptians were known for their slavery, so it makes sense that this would have been heavily ingrained in the Israelites. And since that would be the case, simply stopping such a practice would be like trying to force the Irish from drinking, or making a Chinese man speak only the Queen's English when he only knows Mandarin. Not easily done, since God makes laws improving the practices. So less cruelty comes to the slaves, such as not send daughter on or to further person, and if bought for a son, to treat her as a daughter. You can see he's making the first steps. He knows full well we aren't able to commit to the full righteousness that he wants for us. He has to do it in steps. Deeper context exists around this practice than the book of Exodus allows for. And it could be that the daughter was to be a bride in any case, making the selling of the daughter merely a bride price. And since they seem so similar in those days, they wouldn't have bothered changing the translation at all. It's quite possible that it would have been one and the same in the Hebrew. I don't know, I haven't checked that bit. If anyone does know that translation, by all means give it to me in the comments below. This next one was most likely due to anger. Opening with divorce akin to debauchery, he cites Luke 16, verse 18. Whosoever putteth away his wife and marrieth another committeth adultery. Whosoever marrieth her that is put away from her husband committeth adultery as well. Shouldn't be a surprise if someone who divorced their wife and straight away begs another woman is committing adultery. If this happened in the modern day, it would most likely say that man was having an affair and left his wife for the other woman. Not an honourable thing to do in the best of times. And if someone marries or most likely beds a divorced woman, chances are they are just taking advantage of a woman in distress, which is not an honourable thing to do. Care for her and look after her if she needs it, or give her the space she needs to recover from the divorce. In this case, divorce is akin to debauchery, because divorce for sexual gain outside the marriage bed, another person is taking advantage of a weakened woman. You bear in mind adultery can be considered rape as well. You can see where I'm going with this. The sixth item in this list is simply named cannibalism, with no reference to it being promoted or condemned by the passage given. The passage in question is Second Book of Kings, chapter 6, verse 28 to 29. And the king said unto her, What aileth thee? And she answered, This woman said unto me, Give thy son, so that we may eat of him today, and we shall eat of my son tomorrow. So we boiled my son, and did eat him. And I said unto her the next day, Give thy son, so we may eat him. And she hath hid her son. Simple matter of looking back gives all the context that is needed as to why cannibalism was even practiced. It is in the city of Sumeria, which was under siege, and prices for food were raised to mad proportions because they couldn't farm the land and get the crops in. It lasted long enough that people were getting desperate and resorting to cannibalism. Historical reports show that people who are starving resort to such desperate acts. It's quite clear in many explorers' novels that people have resorted to cannibalism in those desperate situations. Since the man didn't specify if it was endorsed or condemned by this particular passage, I'm making a guess that he is civilized and thinks it was condoned. It definitely doesn't condone cannibalism, because the king himself was horrified. It merely shows how long the siege was going on for. It merely shows how stubborn that king was when it came to the siege. Next one is Deuteronomy, chapter 23, verse 1. He that is wounded in the stones, or hath his privy parts removed, shall not enter the congregation of the Lord. This is given to the effect that those who are wounded in the genitals are not allowed in church. Since gelding and making sons into eunuchs was a common enough practice in the local tribes and the pagan lands, forbidding them entrance to the temple ensures the practice is discouraged rather than simply locking them out of church. Add that to the fact that the Israelites were only a small population in a high death rate time, and you can see that anything that reduces the birth rate or in the fertility rate will stop them from reaching the promised lands or make the new nation too weak to survive against the other tribes. It is merely a way to encourage people not to geld their sons or make them into eunuchs. The tale of Lot's daughters lying with him to continue their line being acceptable is presented in clearly laughable tones. Since this particular chapter, Genesis 19, verse 31 to 36, is quite long, I won't read it out. I'll leave a link for it in the description. But the essence of the story is summed up above. Lot's daughters got him drunk and took his seed, so they could continue his life. Anyone who knows the name of Lot knows that he and his two daughters were the only survivors of the razing of Sodom, and they were forced to live in the mountains. The girls knew that to ensure their line continued, they needed to bear children, and Lot being the only man of sufficient virility for miles around, they decided to take his seed. Since they had to get him drunk, and he was unaware of their lying with him, he was essentially raped by his daughters. Nothing more is said of them apart from their sons siring the tribe of Israel, or some tribes of Israel anyway. Since this is forgotten by most people in biblical teachings, this isn't designed to excuse or condone their actions. It just serves to show that no one on earth is perfect, not even those who listen to God. And it also serves as a cautionary tale, that the apples don't rot far from the tree. Then at number 9 we had the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5, verse 28. For I say unto you that whoever looketh on a woman to lust after hath committed adultery with her already in his heart. This is being labelled as not looking on a woman with desire. Basically, if you fancy a woman, don't look at her. This is where modern standards are actually applicable. If one looks upon a woman with sexual intentions, you are being a perv. If you just want to sleep with a woman, then you are just being a trouser-brained moron who needs to grow up and grow brains up here rather than down there. Liking a woman is perfectly fine. Liking a figure is perfectly fine. But if you let lust overtake you, then that could lead to rape. This isn't saying don't look at a woman at all. It's basically telling you not to be a perv. It could be he was trying to make this segue into the next bit, which is where he claims incestuous rape is okay if really hard to pronounce. For this he cited the second book of Kings, chapter 13, verses 8 to 12, then verse 14. Except he didn't. For some reason he ended up misquoting. After a bit of searching, I found he ended up presenting the second book of Samuel, chapter 13, verses 11 to 14 inclusive. And when she had presented him with the meat, he took her and said, Come lie with me, my sister. She answered him not to do so. Do not force me, for no such thing must be done in Israel. Do not thou that is folly. Here a part is skipped which does not help at all, but it continues, But he would not hearken to her prayers, but being stronger, overpowered her, and laid with her. It is clear that she is unwilling, and when one reads the rest of the book, most of the chapter in fact, the brother, in this case Amnon, was clearly a layabout. He raped his sister, despite her saying that it wasn't the way of Israel. And this angered the king, who in this case was David. This is no way, shape or form condoning incestuous rape. All you indeed is pronouncing it because it's difficult. And how this is presented to this chapter as such, I have no clue. The fact he misquoted and skipped part of the verse doesn't help his case at all. For some reason he brings up a quotation from 2 Chronicles, chapter 21, verse 14 to 15. Behold, with a great plague will the Lord smite thy people, and thy children, and thy wives, and thy goods, and thou shalt have great sickness of thy bowels, until thy bowels fall out by reason of sickness day by day. This is another case where he has left no comment or context, and in this case literally nothing at all, just left that quote. This quote, strange enough, concerns the enemies of Jerusalem. It could in theory be an attempt to blame COVID-19 on God, but since COVID-19 does not have symptoms trace of bowels, and it's more likely inflammatory bowel disease or even the trots. I can't really work on that at all. Nothing more is given, so I won't delve into it. I may as well move on. Last he brings up Revelations, chapter 21, verse 8. Liars. Their place will be in the fiery lake of burning sulphur. This is the second death. He also says that rapists and murderers often get released on good behaviour, whilst eternal damnation is the punishment for lying. This, my friends, is a classic example of why you don't crop out a bit of scripture that suits your argument. This is why cherry picking just doesn't work. The rest of the quotation, in that very same verse, before mentioning liars, names the unbelieving, the vile, the murderers, the sexually immoral, which includes, among other things, raping, sorcerers, idol worshippers, all that, plus the liars, all are being tossed into the same lake of fire, the same lake of brimstone. For some reason, he doesn't read that. For some reason, he also complains about how lying is politics. But seeing what some politicians are like, well, I'll leave the rest of that thought to you. In the midst of all this, he has the cheek to tell us to pray in private. And if we do so in church, do so quietly, citing the book of Matthew, chapter 6, verse 5. And when you pray, don't be like the hypocrites, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues and on the street corners to be seen by others. Three things to say here. Number one, no. Christ tells us not to hide our light under a bushel basket, and I shall quote that for you. Matthew chapter 5, verse 15 to 16. Nor do they light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a lampstand, and it gives light to all who are in the room, in the house. Let your light shine before men, that they may see your good works, and glorify your Father in heaven. Christ doesn't want us to be quiet. He wants us to shine out. Second, this is about hypocrites. And unlike the people who is being quoted in this, we are not hypocrites that speak a prayer with no feeling in it. We don't just talk the talk, but we do the deed. I remember actually, after the Paris attacks, someone said, Christians, stop praying and do something about it. I told him, after you. He didn't seem inclined to do anything about it. And I can tell you that that weekend, I was at a worship celebration, and we took a donation to help those suffering from the Paris attacks. That shows. You do the deed, but then just talk it. Now, with all that in mind, number 3. Why should we listen to someone who in ignorance and foolishness naysays the good Lord with poorly chosen words? Well, not very good at picking things out for us. So we don't really have much reason to listen to it. So what do we have here? Well, we have a naysayer who got angry for some reason and vented in a vindictive manner. My hopes for the argument being good were dashed when I saw the blatant cherry picking, and fain to see that the context explained quite a bit of it if one took a quick look. I can't deny, however, that a couple of arguments were interesting and required me to take a closer look and a close study. Just so you know, they were He who is wounded in the stones, that being the eunuchs and the geldings. When a man sells his daughter as a slave, in Exodus, I believe, and looketh on a woman to lust, that's in Luke. The overall impression I got was someone who either failed to pay attention to the quotes he used, or just borrowed some from somewhere and slapped them on that comment. Some contradict each other, but, well, they're not perfect. You may think I'm a bit angry, and sometimes I do get a bit angry with these arguments, but I've got to admit, this was a good challenge. And I thank you, sir, for that challenge. I hope you've calmed down and are thinking about what I've said. I do not expect to have converted you, far from it. But I just hope you remember, I do my homework, and I'm willing to learn. If I am delusional, you've yet to convince me of it. If you wish to continue, by all means. And if anyone else wishes to challenge me in the name of Tyr, then do so in the comments below. And be sure to subscribe, so you see when your challenge has been met. You may fiddle with the settings, I think. I've to fiddle with that personally, I don't know. But until then, like and share this video. I'll be sharing this video not only on my normal channels, but also with this gentleman in his personal Facebook messages. So, hooray for that, sir. Until then, the rest of you, stay safe, God bless, and good night.